Hi friends! So it is well past the mid-year and I wasn't really feeling doing a mid-year book tag. However, I did want to check in and talk about how my reading has been going, how my year has been going, and I want to color while I do it. So we are going to yap and craft together, similar to the mid-year book tag, but I'm not doing questions from that. I'm just gonna yap. I did get a few questions from Patreon that I thought were really fun, so I'll probably talk about those. But generally, we're just gonna talk about my year, some of my favorite books, some of my favorite videos, and we're gonna color while we do it. So today we're coloring in my Spooky Friends coloring book, and I'm gonna be doing this little like camping page because I thought end of summer, getting into spooky season, what a perfect combination. What a perfect combination. Normally I use my Ohuhu markers, but I'm just gonna be using my Crayola Super Tips. Also, it should be noted that I am not trying to be a professional with my coloring. I literally just like to put color onto the page. I don't try to be good at coloring. I'm really trying to not overthink my hobbies because I feel like the moment that I start overthinking them, it gets bad for me. It gets bad for me, babes. So this year I started a new position at the library and it's been pretty mentally taxing. It's been pretty draining. And I also am just feeling a lot of feels about being in the library field in general currently. I knew going into it I would be reading less. I didn't realize how much less. I didn't realize how drained I would feel being in this position. Working with adults is much harder than working with children and teens for me. Who would have thought? Children are just so upfront and honest and like willing to participate in things that adults are. But going into this position, I knew that I was gonna be reading less. And so I changed my typical reading goal, which is like between 100 and 115 to 80, which I thought was reasonable. But I'm already like 5 or 6 books behind. I'm not really bothered by it. So I think as of yesterday, I've read like 32 books, which is great. That is great. That is a really great number. It's less for me usually by the halfway point of the year, but like it's still a really great number, and who knows what's gonna happen in the second half of the year. Maybe I'll actually get my life together for once. I do think though that with me reading less than normal, I do feel like I'm picking out books very specifically. I'm very specific and strategic about what I want to read these days because I want it to be something that I love. So I haven't really been following new releases as much as maybe other years, but I've kind of been falling off of following new releases as heavily in the last couple of years just generally because I have been really disappointed by a lot of my like anticipated releases. So I've just kind of like tried to chill out on reading strictly like new releases as they come out. I guess in years past, I never really paid attention to how much I do read new releases. But it's not like that's really changing. It's not that I'm like really changing my habits of reading new releases because there are so many like sequels coming out this year that I'm so excited about. They're specifically coming out in September and October, which is like a big publishing month generally. So I'm always very excited for that time of year. But yeah, I would say this year I'm just reading less. I'm also vlogging less than I have been because I just don't have the energy or the time really. I don't know. I've been trying, you guys. I've been trying, but like the energy and the time just isn't there. Every time I think I have a day where I can like go sneak out to my car and vlog, it just hasn't been happening. And that's also okay. I think it's been cool trying to figure out my channel at this current stage of my life because I feel I've been pretty consistent in what kind of content I've put out for a few years now, the few years that I've been on BookTube. But now it's like different. It's different and it's a challenge. I have so many hobbies and interests that I'm kind of more inclined to pick up currently than, you know, just reading, but I'm always reading as well. I don't know. I think that's a cool thing about like getting older and also just being a person is like the way your interests change or like how certain hobbies are like the forefront of your life and your personality for so long and then it changes or it shifts. For so many years, like video games and art were my thing. You know, that's what I was constantly doing. I was always reading in the background, but you know, the last couple of years, and especially during the pandemic, it was like reading was at the forefront of everything that I did, and most of my other hobbies just kind of chilled in the background. But now I'm really getting into like a lot of like slower art hobbies again, and like trying to learn how to sew, trying to learn how to embroider. I'm doing painting again, but I'm like focusing on acrylics these days, which has not been my medium for years. So it's really cool to see just like how my reading's changing, how my crafts and life are changing. I'm really trying to have a slow life these days because I feel like that's just what I need. I don't know, if I'm honest with you, I'm turning into my grandma. I'm turning into my grandma. So actually one of the questions that a patron asked me was about like what my favorite video has been this year. And it's kind of funny because I feel like my favorite video that I've done recently isn't even like a video that went out to the public. So I do mini Love It or List It's on Patreon. I have like some video series that have been on my channel for years now, like 3+ years probably. And it's all about reading my backlist TBR or reading books that I owned and then trying to unhaul them. I've been doing that for years. Like ever since I first started my channel, I've always been trying to do that because I was very overwhelmed by my TBR, like my owned TBR. And I've tried to figure out different ways of like getting that down, right? So Love It or List It was one of those ways, and I felt like it was too redundant on my main channel with Read It Down, which is like one of my favorite series to do. And so I brought it to Patreon as like a mini version, so I really only read like one book in it. But recently I did one where I'm kind of talking about my slow life, like doing puzzles and doing art and like trying to find different hobbies. And I just really liked editing it because it made me realize how much I am like my grandma. And I just love her. She was so crafty, and I don't know, she was my bestie. So I'm like honored to feel like her. It feels like an honor to like see those parts of someone you love in yourself. So that's been cool, and it was really cool to edit that. So that was one of my favorite videos recently. I just had a really nice time editing it. And I think on my main channel, the beginning of the new Read It Down was really, really fun, to be honest, because I've missed doing that series on my channel. Previously, it was something that I did where I had friends send me videos to tell me what I needed to read off of my own TBR. And as much as I loved that, I put a lot of pressure on myself with that video series, and I was getting really burnt out. And so I'm doing it a whole different way, but it still has the heart, I feel, of Read It Down, and that's been really, really fun to like explore. I haven't done as many episodes this year as I've wanted to because, like I said, that's just not how my life has been going recently. But the ones that I've done, I've had so much fun with. And also I had a really, really fun time doing the weird girl vlog part 2. I just kind of love doing those videos because they can be really unhinged in terms of what I'm reading. Okay, but y'all, I think that I have hit a really good stride with like fantasy romance and books that I'm loving, because Grace Draven this year has taken over my life. Finally got back to the Radiant series. So I've read the first and the second one in that series. Loved it so much. And then I read Entreat Me, which I did read in a video, and I loved that one so much. And like, her just big declarations of love, her like way of writing, the fantasy worlds, I don't know, I just really love it. And oh my God, I fell in love with The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillig, which I was not expecting. I went into that one with high hopes. I definitely had high hopes for it, but I really wasn't expecting to love it as much as I did. I can't stop thinking about it. I was watching a reading vlog yesterday. I think it was Becca's Shelve It or Scrap It, and she ended up reading it, and like the whole time she was talking about it, I was like, oh my God, I really, really love this book so much. I love this book so much. There's just so much about it to love. I definitely don't think it's gonna be everybody's cup of tea, but like I fell in love with it. There's something this year with me and like moody, gothic almost fantasy romance, where the fantasy romance is like slow burn, which slow burn is always my thing, but like the fantasy romance is slow burn, and there's something like gothic and old-timey about it, because The Night and the Moth, the feeling of it, while the language doesn't always reflect this in the book, the feeling of it is so like knights in armor and we're in ye old days. And even in Treat Me and like most things by Grace Draven feel that way. And I feel like the fantasies that are creeping up on me that I'm ending up loving, it's that vibe. But now I'm like, should I reread One Dark Window? Should I try it again? I don't know. You know what else really creeped up on me? I reread Bridge Kingdom. I don't even think that I finished it the first time that I was reading it. And then I read the duology this year with my patrons. That was a really good time. That was a really good time. I loved it. I also think Heavenly Bodies was this year. I'm pretty sure I read Heavenly Bodies this year at the beginning of the year. Loved that one. That one is less, I feel, the moody, like gothic fantasy romance, but something about Heavenly Bodies like really worked for me. I am so excited about the new release. Oh, but even like Sword Heart, I read Sword Heart by T. Kingfisher this year, and actually I feel like if you liked Sword Heart, you'll probably like parts of Night and the Moth, because there's just something about maybe it's the way that it's told. I don't really know, because there is a bit of humor in The Night and the Moth. There's a lot of humor in Sword Heart because it's T. Kingfisher. She loves humor in her books. Something else that's been really hitting for me this year is contemporary romance. A few of the ones that I've really loved. I like Wildfire. I really like Hannah Grace in general. I didn't love Icebreaker, but Daydreamer was like one of my favorite contemporary romances of last year, and I really enjoyed Wildfire. While I can understand actually why people wouldn't like that one, because it is pretty heavy on like grief and like alcoholism and stuff like that. I can see why the people would not love that vibe. You know who gave me a book that was so unexpected? I didn't expect to love it, honestly, as much as I did, and it was Forget Me Not by Julie Soto. And then that made me super interested for Julie Soto's fantasy romance, which I did end up pre-ordering on my Kobo. I haven't gotten to it yet, but I just loved Forget Me Not. Like, I'm not even a second chance romance lover, but something about that one was just done perfectly. It was also set in Sacramento, and I went to school near Sacramento, so I spent a ton of time in Sacramento. I lived in Sacramento for a time, and it was just so nice to see landmarks and some of the things that they were talking about. But I will say it does serve as just like a backdrop. There's not a ton of Sacramento lore, if you will, in there. I did end up reading Not Another Love Song by her, which I didn't love as much, but I don't really care about musical components in books. I really don't. And they literally play in an orchestra. So that was my bad, to be honest. But earlier in the year, I had read Real, which is probably, it has to be my favorite contemporary romance at this point. That one opened up my eyes to a lot of things that I could potentially like, because I typically don't like music in books, and I typically don't like acting and like pop culture references in books. Fame just generally doesn't do anything for me. And so I kind of avoided Real for a really long time, and then I finally picked it up. It was so good, and it made me think like maybe I can like a book that's about fame, because it wasn't the same as some of the more modern contemporary romances that have fame in it, where somebody's an actor and it just like you feel like it's so actory, whatever. It literally was just, I don't even know how to explain Real. Like, the acting was a part of the story, but it wasn't the story, and it was so much about these two who are a director and an actor falling in love, and the things that they're personally going through. I don't know, just everything worked for me in Real. So it opened up my eyes to the fact that I could potentially like more things with like acting and fame in them, but that clearly did not translate with music. I don't know, maybe there is the perfect book out there that has music in it that won't bother me, but I've yet to meet a book where I've liked pop culture references. And I think maybe that's why Real also worked so well for me, because there was like no pop culture references. That wasn't at all the point of the book. And not to say that Not Another Love Song had pop culture references. I don't think that it did. It was just like the music component didn't really work for me, and it was a huge part of the book. I also really, really loved Unsteady. It was such a good romance, but it's also very, very heavy. I mean, I think I've said this before. Most of my books that like connect to me in such a deep and impactful way usually have heavier topics in them. I don't know, it's just who I am. It's just who I am. Anything with grief, like I connect to it so deeply. I've had a lot of grief in my life from the time I was like 16 to pretty much all of my 20s. And so I've had a lot of grief in my life, so I connect just so much and so deeply to it. So I find that like these stories about people having hardships with their families and their parents, I connect. I don't actually get very triggered by it, although sometimes in horror, I can find myself getting a little more anxious about things. Even if it has the components that I like in it, I find myself getting a little more anxious about those things. But Unsteady was great, but it's heavy. Like the two main characters are really, really going through a lot with their family and just in their lives in general. And I like the way that they connected because it was like this unexpected romance even for both of them, but they're so sweet. And they're such a lovely couple. And more recently, I've become a Hallie an Allie Hazelwood stan. I read Not in Love and Problematic Summer Romance. Oh, yes. Chef kisses all around. Specifically for Problematic Summer Romance because that one did something wrong. Problematic Summer Romance, wow. I finally admitted on camera, just wholeheartedly admitted on camera that I love an age gap. Okay, age gap romance. It's gonna get me every time. It's gonna get me every time. I'm that girl. Now, the age gap has to be like appropriate, okay? I'm not looking for some weird age gap stuff, but I do like an age gap. I love an age gap. And it worked so well in this book. And it was brother's best friend, which something that I seem to like. So I had a very fun time with that. I've been very intimidated by Miss Hallie. That's her new name. I've been very intimidated by her because I just felt like I was not going to vibe. I felt like I wasn't going to vibe at all with her work, but I did. I really love the found family aspect. I liked the way the chemistry worked in these books. I really like the science of it all. Like most every character has a science background or there's something sciencey in it. Didn't think I liked workplace romance. Not in Love kind of changed my mind about that. I don't know if I'm gonna like go out of my way to find workplace romance. And I think something that was like really fun was reading these two books that are in the same universe. They're in the same series and they felt so different, which made me feel like, wow, you capture the tone of these characters so well and they're vastly different. I'm definitely going to pick up Deep End. I'm very excited for Mate, which is the second book in the Bride series. I don't know if that one actually has a series title, but yeah. Hallie! Horror-wise, I haven't read a ton of horror this year, but two that stood out to me for very similar reasons actually were The Eyes Are the Best Part and Bat Eater and Other Names for Corazang. I gave Bat Eater and Other Names for Corazang 5 stars. Like that is definitely one of my top books this year and I feel like it's gonna stick with me forever. I think about that book a lot. You guys. I think about it so much. Eyes Are the Best Part. That one is one that I read, really enjoyed it in the moment of reading it, and feel like I don't think about it as much as I think about like Bat Eater or some of my other favorite horror books, which is why I didn't really include it in my horror recommendations video, although I do recommend it. I think it has a lot to say about fetishization of Asian women, about immigrating here. It also had a lot to say about grief and trauma. And I think that that also translated in Bat Eater and Other Names for Corazang, where there was a lot of discussions about the fetishization of Asian women, and specifically Bat Eater and Other Names for Corazang is set in the pandemic. The book starts at the very beginning of the pandemic and the main character sees her sister brutally murdered by this white person. It's definitely racially motivated. And so it was a very emotional book. It was very, very emotional. But I just really enjoyed everything that it had to say, everything that it was doing. And I really enjoyed that about The Eyes Are the Best Part as well. But it just didn't hit me the same, I guess, as Bat Eater did. I'm gonna say it right now. It's hard to color in Yap. and like pick color choices correctly. I keep just going for it, like putting the color on the page and going, ugh, brother, ugh. So please don't judge me by this coloring. Something else I picked up this year that I really, really loved was this Woven Kingdom series by Tahira Mafi. So good, so good. Loved it so much. I ended up picking this up because of Erin, and I marathoned the 3 books that are out. The 4th book is coming out in September. It's either September or November. And I can't wait, but it is a 5-book series, so I will be waiting. I will be waiting for the last one. Oh my God, you know what else I loved this year was Tusk Love. Wow. Thea, the woman that you are. Because I didn't even really like her other book, The Hurricane Wars, very much. But this one made me want to go back and reread The Hurricane Wars and like give it a second shot. Actually, I have a patron / friend who read The Hurricane Wars with me, thought it was fine. I think she gave it like 3 stars, and I ended up DNFing it. And then she moved on to the second one and gave the second one 5 stars and said it was so much better. So I'm like, I should give this another shot, shouldn't I? Shouldn't I? And every time I go to the bookstore, it's always calling to me. So I'm really upset with some of my color choices in here. What am I doing? You know, when you like start it and you're like, I'm gonna give up on that. I think that's what's gonna happen. Let's pick another page. Okay, and then I think you know that one of my like all-time favorite books of this year, and probably going to be of my life, was Sunrise on the Reaping. I had an amazing time with it. I've seen mixed reviews. I don't know, maybe I just went in with lower expectations, but I had an amazing time rereading The Hunger Games. That's probably one of my favorite videos. I kind of forgot that I did that this year because this year's been a whirlwind. We like moved a quarter of the way into the year, and so I feel as if I'm splitting my time between living in our old place and living in this new place, and I read The Hunger Games in the old place. So I keep forgetting that I did that this year, but I had such a fun time rereading The Hunger Games, and the series held up for me. And then I went to a midnight release party of Sunrise on the Reaping and absolutely had a blast, and then read the book in 2 or 3 days after getting it, and what a time! I cried. Suzanne really put her whole Suza-C into that one. But I guess we need to talk about disappointing books. I did have quite a few disappointing books this year, but actually I feel like, thinking about what I read this year, I feel like I've liked or loved most of what I've read. There have just been a few disappointing books that like I picked up anticipating that I was going to love them, and then it didn't happen. One of them is the Heartless Hunter duology, but I did actually really enjoy the first book in that series. And then when I got like 15 to 20% into the second book, I realized that I just didn't care. I realized I did not care, and I didn't want to be in the world anymore. So I ended up DNFing the second one, which sucks because I liked the first one enough to move on. The most disappointing book probably of the year is Wild and Wrangled. Y'all, I didn't like it. I didn't like it. I was trying so hard to love this book, and it was just like fine. I didn't feel any connection to it like I have the other ones. And the series is like, it has some of my most favorite contemporary romances in it. Like I love Swift and Saddled and Lost and Lassoed. And I think maybe that's why things felt a little bit disappointing, right? Is that like I felt every book in the series was getting better and better, and I was really highly anticipating this character. So this also happened to me with Ashley Herring Blake, actually, with the Delilah Green series. I was anticipating the third book, and I was anticipating that character's book. So maybe the real problem is me. Another one that was really disappointing for me, I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it, and I previously have given this author 5 stars, and that was Immaculate Conception. This one did not land for me. This one did not land for me, and that is really the saddest part. So apparently 2 of my most highly anticipated releases this year, not good. I can't say they're not good. I think people will like them. I just didn't like them. Also, I'm gonna make their popsicles orange creamsicles because I have been drinking the orange creamsicle Olipop, and man, it's a banger. While I was like anticipating the release of Silver Elite, I wasn't anticipating it for such a long time that it felt super disappointing. And also I kind of went in not knowing how I would feel about it because it was marketed as a dystopian, and the moment that I started reading it, it didn't really feel like a dystopian, and so I kind of just knew that maybe I was going in with the wrong expectations of the book. And then I was like having a pretty fine time with it for a while, and then I ended up just like not liking it by the end. There's a lot of speculation around this book as well about who the author is and if this is AI and all that stuff, so I'm not even going to spend that much time on this, but yeah, I really didn't end up liking it. I could see why people like it. I could see why it's a fun time. It was really easy to get through. I read it literally in one sitting. But yeah, I can't say that it was memorable or that I would ever go back to it, which I won't. I won't be revisiting this world. Yeah, I feel like everything else I've picked up just kind of on a whim. Like, I really did not like Tell Me What You Did by Carter Wilson, which I read for the Book Troop book club. None of us really liked it. I did DNF The Great Big Beautiful Life, The Great BBL, and I don't know. Emily Henry is so like hit or miss for me in general that I wasn't disappointed by this. I wasn't like, it didn't really shock me. I was like, okay, this is just one that's not vibing, and I moved on with my life. I guess some of the things that I'm anticipating for the rest of the year is definitely like sequels. I'm really anticipating I'm gonna love the sequel to Fear the Flame, which I did already get my copy. And I do anticipate that I'm really going to love the sequel to Heavenly Bodies. I'm also anticipating that I'll love the rest of the Bridge Kingdom series if I get to it this year. I don't really know if I will, because I feel like I want to wait for the very last book in the series to come out and then just like marathon everything. But I do keep thinking about it. I do keep thinking about going back into that world. And then obviously I'm really anticipating the sequel to This Woven Kingdom. I do really want to reread it and annotate pretty heavily. Other random things that I really want to get to this year. I either want to reread the Farseer trilogy, or I want to get into Robin Hobb's other series, Shaman's Crossing. I feel like I need more Robin Hobb in my life. Maybe that's what's been missing, you know? Maybe that's what's been missing from my life. There's also this like big stack of books back here that I'm really wanting to read. So I really want to read Dance of Lies. I want to reread The Jasad Heir and get to the second book, which it's a duology now. I think it was supposed to be a trilogy, now it's a duology, so it's going to be the last book. And then I really want to try Windweaver, Shield of Sparrows. I want to finish The Raven Scholar. The Raven Boys graphic novel came out, and I was going to read it like immediately, and then I saw some early-ish reviews of it, and I'm a little bit nervous. I am in the middle of filming a video right now where I'm basically just reading to catch up on my Goodreads goal because I'm behind, like I said, and I started Terror at the Gates. I'm loving it. Oh my god, I'm loving it. I'm not going to say too much because that video is going to be the next video that you see, hopefully, fingers crossed. And yeah, wow. I went in, like, I knew I had seen Rachel from Raven Haired Reader talk about this book, and I know that she really liked it, and so I was like, okay, that's a good sign. But I was trying not to listen to reviews about it. I was trying not to like listen to her full review about it. I'm gonna go watch it later when I'm done with the book. But I was like, okay, so she really likes it, cool. But I didn't want to have any preconceived notions going in. And so I didn't really know what this book was about. And wow, I'm excited to finally be reading Scarlett St. Clair because I all of her other stuff has never really been that interesting to me. A lot of it's retellings and things like that. So I haven't fully wanted to read any of those. But this one, I kind of knew it wasn't a retelling and it was sort of on its own from her other works, and so I had to pick it up. And I'm so happy that I did. I didn't really have any reading goals this year. I just wanted to have fun, and I wanted to like try to get myself into the flow of working full time and trying to balance doing content. And I haven't been great at it, you know? It's still a learning curve for me. Haven't been the best, but I feel that I'm getting into a good place now that I've like really try to slow down with things, and as always am trying to have fun with things. I just always want to have fun with what I'm doing. So the good thing for me is that when I'm vlogging and I'm like in the zone of filming, I'm very happy about it because I've realized it brings me a lot of joy, and I always miss when I'm not filming, which I love. I love that it's a hobby that I've just continued to love so deeply, and it brings me a lot of joy, and I just want to continue feeling that way throughout the year. I mean, I obviously can't fully control that, and you know, I always feel bad when I'm not putting out videos as regularly as I have in the past, but I'm trying, you know, and that's the best thing that I could do. And I have to keep reminding myself of that. One of the questions that my patron asked that I really loved, and I just wanted to squeeze it in here because I feel like the concept of having fun on BookTube and like in the hobby, whatever hobby that you're doing, is so important. And so I was asked by my patron if I had a moment where I think, yes, this is why I read. And honestly, it was the video where I was trying to cure my depression and my Gale Decarius brain rot from Baldur's Gate. Because so many of the books in there were so good. Whole video, I was like, I love reading. I'm having so much fun. And I think that's the big part for me, is like having fun with what I'm reading. Reading isn't always fun. Reading is very political, and I fully believe that. And that's why I try to read my little nonfictions, and I, you know, try to be mindful about the authors I'm picking up, etc. But there is a moment when you're just having so much fun in another world that I'm just like, yes, this is why I read. I love reading because it just makes me so excited. It makes me happy. I love when I connect with characters, when it really feels like another world, when I'm transported somewhere else that's not here. Those are the moments that I'm like, I love reading. I love reading. I also love the moments of reading when you're like so obsessed with whatever you're reading that it's all you think about, and you're so desperate to get back to that world and those characters and whatever's going on in the storyline. I love those moments. I love those moments a lot. I suppose the last thing that we can talk about is kind of like what's coming up on my channel, and really it's just me vibing. I'm still gonna be doing lots of vlogs. That's like my favorite thing to film. That's my favorite thing to do, and I'm gonna continue doing that. And I think just trying to do more sit down, fun, casual things with y'all, because I really do enjoy these types of videos as well. Just little catch ups. I think we should yap and craft more often, but maybe this time I won't just go ham on choosing every color in the palette without testing it out first and making it ugly. So we did prove that I can't color in chat. Can't color in yap well. I can't color in yap. I regret a lot of the choices that I made today. Anyway, my battery is about to die, and so I think this is probably a good time to stop anyway. I've subjected you long enough to this coloring, and I hope this was a good little catch up. If you do like videos like this, I would love to do another catch up with you. And if you want to, please put like some art supplies down below as a little emoji to say hi, and I'll talk to y'all next time. Bye, friends.